99X, it's the Morning X. Barnes and Leslie. Fram, what are you afraid of?
You know I have major claustrophobia.
I did not know that.
Yes, and if I take a flight anywhere, I have to have an aisle seat or I won't get on the plane.
No kidding.
Yes.
Some of the biggest things people are afraid of, public speaking is number one.
I've heard that, yes.
So your fear is irrational because you have no problem public speaking.
I love I can do that, yes.
Okay. Heights, that's a big one for people.
Yeah, that's my fear of going to the Sphere. I might get a little vertigo.
Go low. Strangely, going to the dentist is a big fear.
Yeah, yes.
Number 4 is one near and dear to my heart, which I am all very afraid of. Snakes. Not a fan.
Bugs, snakes.
My daughter, Maddie, has pet snakes.
Whoa.
Freaks me out. But number 5 on the list that most Americans are afraid of is flying.
Oh, yes. That is a huge fear.
I've never understood that. I mean, I guess I understand it, but everyone's got their reasons for what they're afraid of. But there is a great new service, If This Is You, which apparently like 40%, I believe, of the public they report being afraid of flying. There's a new service called Dial a Pilot. And the guy who created that, I'm going to screw his last name up, but I'm going to give it one shot. It's Kyle, and help me, Kyle, Courtoy. Is that it?
Courtoy. You nailed it. You nailed it. It was perfect.
So this is an interesting idea. You're a pilot, right? You're an official, real pilot that flies big planes.
Yep, I fly Boeing 737s right now. And I've flown a variety of other airliners, but right now I'm flying the 737.
What gave you this idea of Dial a Pilot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my wife, her name's Maddie. She has a sister that has been terrified of flying essentially as long as I've known her. So for years, I'm talking 10 years, she's called me before. Not every single flight, but most of them. And we talked through the turbulence, what kind of airplane she was on. We would talk through, what time of day was the best to book flying into places like Las Vegas or Denver. And so I would say every airline pilot probably in the world really has been doing this for somebody in their lives for a long time. And so finally I was talking to a gentleman one night and he had no idea, my job. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. And he had told me a story about finding out he had lost his job while he was on an airplane and how he hated flying. And so it just made it all the worse. And I said, would you want the opportunity to call an airline pilot beforehand and just learn about the flight as much as you possibly could? And he said, oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
And we'll give the information out how you can get a hold of them if you're interested at the end. But what is the most common question or thing people say to you when they get on the Dial a Pilot line?
The first thing that they almost always say is the exact same thing you said at the very beginning of this. And they say, I know this fear is irrational. And I always stop them and say, the numbers say that airline flying is so unbelievably safe, because it is. But let's consider for a second that you're getting on a metal tube going 500 miles an hour at 40,000 feet with two people in charge you've never met. That's kind of scary. So that's the first thing I always invite them to say is, hey, yes, it's very safe, but let's help you understand why it's so safe. So, then we go into things like turbulence, what the chimes mean, all of those things, just kind of helping people really get a good grasp of why things happen the way that they do. So that's kind of the big, from a fear standpoint, turbulence is the big question.
Okay, the biggest thing that I get, even from a relative prior, that I would hear is, I'm so afraid, and they get on and they start drinking. And that is supposed to, calm them. But hey, newsflash, 140,000 people die annually from alcoholism and 176 deaths in 2021 from air crashes. So just keep it in perspective, everybody.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough thing to do, right? You kind of try and look for that easy, hey, I know that this is going to help me calm down type thing, almost looking for that, just that medicine that you can take and not have an issue. So that's kind of what we're trying to help people, be able to have a little bit of a crutch moving into things. Just better understanding always helps.
We're talking to Kyle Courtoy from Dial a Pilot. Is this like Doctors on Demand? Because I've done that before where, you can Zoom with the doctor about whatever ailment you have. How does it work, Dial a Pilot?
Yeah, great question. I would say it's actually a very similar setup to that. And the way that we work is you go onto our website and you're able to look at our calendar, and we have 10 active pilots working for us. And they're all U.S.-based airline pilots. And so you can go in and see what times are available. You click on your time. It schedules you a 15-minute block. It does cost $50. And then at that given time, the pilot calls you, and we ask, the first thing we do is just say, hey, tell us about your fear. Tell us what's going on. And then they invite us kind of into their world of the anxiety they feel towards flying. And then we spend about 15 minutes on the phone just getting all those questions answered. And we push a lot of content out as well to really help people kind of understand, hey, this is what turbulence is. So there's a lot that people will come into and say, okay, I saw your video on this, and I just have some questions that I want to expand on. So that's kind of the idea behind it, if that makes sense.
Is there a difference in, say, flying a 737 and flying like a small private jet? Is the same chance of error or problem existing for both sizes of aircraft?
I would say yes. So the way that works is the airliners, I should say, Boeing, Airbus, and Embraer, they're all designed with these really amazing system redundancies. They're certified under a specific code in the Federal Aviation Regulation, and that requires them to be stressed to these unbelievable limits. It requires them to have these incredible aircraft system redundancies, and private jets are actually certified to a very similar code, if not the same code. So prior to me flying airliners, I actually used to fly private jets, and we would take them across the ocean all the time. We'd go to Europe, we'd go to Hawaii, and I never once even remotely considered that the airplane was going to have any sort of issue that would be problematic as we went across. So yeah, you still have the same style of pilot training, and you have very similar aircraft engineering going into both. So flying private on those type of airliners, what we would call a turbine aircraft, a jet, has very similar safety redundancies to an airliner.
Fram, this sparked an idea for all the people afraid to listen to the Morning X. Maybe we just start a Dial a DJ.
I think that's a great idea.
There you go.
Yeah, you pay us $50 and we'll calm you down and we'll do little private bits. Yeah. Hey, have you ever seen, Kyle, any UFOs?
I never have. What's really interesting to see, though, is Elon Musk's Starlink when that flies over.
Oh, yeah.
That's really, really cool looking. The first time you see that, you're like, what am I looking at? And then, you all of a sudden start to get the answers. But I haven't seen anything that I would describe as a UFO.
Well, you couldn't hit the Starlink because I was sitting in France over the summer and one looked so close to me. I know it wasn't, but it seemed not that far out. And I know they start, I guess, I don't know how it floats around, but there's no chance a plane could run into one of those?
No. We fly down at, somewhere between 30,000 and 41,000 feet, which those things are flying unbelievably high. So no, and
Wow.
We actually have, here's a great question. We have airspace that's protected for us from 29,000 all the way up to 41,000 feet. And air traffic controllers do a really good job of ensuring what we would call aircraft separation in that area. So we're very well protected when we're up there.
Well, the one I saw was low, and what I read was it could have been a launch of one. So it could have been in France. They were launching one of Elon Musk's Starlinks, and then it just starts going up. But that would mean it would have to pass through your airspace to get up higher. I don't know. But I did see it. It was low. It was very low.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really don't know too much about that. But what I will say is, when something like that goes on, what they can actually do is protect that airspace area using either what we would call a restricted area, a temporary flight restriction, or military operating areas in which they could protect all of that airspace from airliners actually flying through it. So we would be routed around it horizontally instead of vertically.
Well, Kyle, this is cool. Dialapilot.com is how you find this crew of pilots willing to help you with your fear of flying. Kyle, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
The Morning X with Barnes and Leslie.
How you doing?
99X.